Good morning. It's Alan from Sweet Home, Alabama, and raining as you might be able to see, and a little bit cloudy in the distance. But I want to take us today to Philippians chapter 4, starting in verse 10. If you would, you can join me there. I'm reading out of the ESV. Paul writes, I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length you have revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had had no opportunity. Now, if you don't know, in this particular letter, Paul is in prison, most likely in Rome, and he's writing to the Philippian church in Greece, in Philippi, and he's letting them know he gets it. You know, they, for whatever reason, weren't able to reach out and help him for a period of time, but that's past. And he's excited and he's glad that they've renewed their concern for him. And then he says, not that I am speaking of being in need. In other words, he's saying, hey, it's been okay. For I've learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. And in any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. And then a very famous verse, verse 13, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Now, there's a great beauty that Paul is teaching in this passage, is that he's been through a lot. He's experienced good times, and he's experienced not so good times. But he's found in the midst of that how to be content. This verse, verse 13, was actually the very first verse that I ever memorized as a new Christian. And I applied it pretty much to just about everything. In fact, probably to a lot of things that didn't really have anything to do with God. In fact, it was brought to my attention recently, although this is probably the most common translation of verse 13, what I've just read. The New International Version, the NIV, actually translates this and says, I can do all these things through him who strengthens me, which may have very well been Paul's point, is that through all the things that he had been through, the ups, the downs, the good times, the bad times, that he's learned that he can put his faith and trust in Christ and everything else is going to be okay. Now, it's interesting for me. I've got a teaching coming up at our church where I've been asked to teach on this passage. And some of you know I have been through a bit in the last couple of months. It seemed like after one thing, another thing would happen, another thing on top of it. I felt like a modern day Job there for a bit, just saying. Okay, I'm not, but that's just where I was living. And it wasn't good. But the reality was that I wrestled with the thoughts of all of this through it. And recognizing that through this low, because this was, for me at least, a very significant low. God has blessed me overall with great physical health. And to go through the things that I've had to go through in the last couple of months has been very challenging for me. And I've had to learn to be content in those things and recognizing that there are now seemingly some things not only in the moment that I can't do, that's obvious, but maybe even through the future, I may never be able to go back to doing. One of my great loves, as I may have mentioned even on here before, is I love to mountain bike. And it's one of those sports that requires some endurance. It's one of those sports that requires good physical health, a willingness to take some risk, which are all things that I just love and I'm drawn to. But the thought's been brought to me by my wife and by others that might be part of my past. I got to tell you, I'm not ready to go there yet. And if it is, God's going to have to teach me how to be content. Now, that's a worldly thing, a first world problem by all stretches. But it's still something important to me. And it signifies a change in my life and in my health and in my future that, quite frankly, I'm not entirely ready to go there yet. And I think it is not without coincidence. In fact, there's an old Yiddish proverb that says, coincidence is not kosher, that all things happen for a purpose. And it's likely that it's not coincidental that all the things that I have been through in the past are a prelude to me having to get up in front of a church and teach about how to be content in all things. Now, I haven't entirely mastered that yet, just to be real. But I can tell you that I know that I can do these things, that I have done these things in the last couple of months because of who Jesus is. If it weren't for Jesus in my life, quite frankly, I would not be making this video right now. I don't even want to go beyond that to where this was. But it was because of Christ that I was able to endure. I don't know what it is right now for you. Maybe it's a high time or a low time. But in those times, both of them are times that we can get distracted and pulled away from God. But my prayer for you today is this, that you recognize that no matter what it is, that you can do those things, those good things in Christ. That you can do those harder things in Christ. Because it's in Christ and in Christ alone that we have life and will experience the fullness of all that God has for us. I hope this is helpful to you today. I pray that no matter where you are, in a high time or in a low time, that you know if you are in Christ, that He is with you. And where He may not draw you out of it, because He certainly didn't draw me out as much as I begged Him to do so, that He's walking with you through it, that He is present in those difficult circumstances. Walk in that truth today. God is with you.